Let's go on the record. Now, have you ever wondered why fashion flirts with darkness? While so many of the major brands play with demonic and occult imagery, pentagrams, inverted crosses, Baphomet prints. Now, this isn't a new trend. It's been embedded in fashion for decades, if not more, and it's definitely not by accident or coincidence. Fashion isn't just fabric, it's messaging, and fashion has always been about more than just a fabric and a fit. It's a language, one that transcends cultures, and it speaks through symbols, colors, and cultural references. Now, today we're going to be diving into the complex world of symbolic imagery in luxury fashion. From religious iconography to occult references, we'll be exploring what these symbols mean and why designers use them and how different communities interpret them differently. This episode is about trying to glean some form of understanding of the cultural conversation that is happening on the runways, but also in our closets. Let's start with the basics. And I'm not talking about the basics in fashion, I'm talking about basics in symbols. Symbols in fashion aren't new. Symbols serve multiple purposes in fashion. They create brand identity and recognition. They tap into cultural narratives and emotions. They can even challenge social norms or express rebellion. They connect products to a deeper meaning or stories. But here's where it gets complex. Symbols mean different things to different people, and it is deeper than we might think at first glance. Because what if I told you that many of the luxury fashion houses are using beauty as a Trojan horse for something much deeper? Now, stay with me, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. We have been taught that beauty equals good. If it's on a high fashion runway, if it's expensive, if it's art, it must be harmless. But remember this, Lucifer was described as an angel who was perfect in beauty. Evil rarely shows up looking like a monster, and sometimes it shows up dressed up in designer. And brands definitely understand that. They know that beauty, status, and luxury, well, they seduce us into trust. But what happens when those brands start embedding spiritual messages into their art? That's what today's episode is about. Let's talk about it. Is it just harmless symbolism, or is it something deeper? Gucci's runways have been known to be filled with the Baphomet imagery, inverted crosses, and witchcraft symbols. Versace's logo is Medusa, which is a mythological figure who turns people to stone that symbolizes fatal attraction and seduction. Louis Vuitton's monograms and checkerboard floors, which many tie to sacred geometry, initiation rituals, and even Freemasonry symbolism. Even Alexander McQueen built this entire collection around witch trials, mental asylums, and ritualistic horror imagery. Knowing that art reflects the state of our culture in the world, then maybe it's not just fashion, because sometimes it is that deep. These aren't coincidences, maybe they're visual codes. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, Balenciaga's 2022 campaign controversy. You may have heard about it. The brand faced massive backlash for a campaign featuring children with teddy bears in bondage-style accessories. They also had legal documents related to child exploitation cases that were visible in some of the images, specifically the United States versus Williams case, which upholds criminalizing child pornography. You don't accidentally stage that kind of imagery. It's not possible. And Balenciaga, of course, apologized, and they removed the campaign, calling it a series of grievous errors. They then filed a lawsuit against the production company and set designer. But this incident does raise important questions. What responsibility do brands have for the imagery that they produce? Where's the line between provocative art and harmful messaging? These are legitimate concerns that deserve serious discussion. Balenciaga claimed it was a mistake, but you're going to see that this is not a one-off. This is a pattern in many brands. Fast forward to Balenciaga's most recent campaigns, they've introduced the butterfly face mask on their runway. It made headlines for being avant-garde and bold, but let's go just a little bit deeper. In the occult, often butterflies symbolize something more than beauty. They represent temptation, duality, and transformation through hidden or dark knowledge. Historically, butterflies have been tied to the soul, and the Greek word for butterfly is psyche. Some traditions believe that butterflies carry the souls of the deceased or act as messengers between realms. Witches have used butterfly imagery in rituals to communicate with spirits, and the colors of butterflies also carry spiritual meanings. So when Balenciaga sends a model down the runway with a butterfly mask, is there a potential that maybe it's not just an accessory but rather a ritual symbol? Now let's examine some of the other brands who are doing this. Let's talk about Gucci's mystic imagery. Under Alessandro Michele, Gucci has incorporated these astrological symbols, tarot references, and mystical themes. Michele has spoken about his interest in symbolism and storytelling through fashion, and according to an article on Elle, which by the way, this is a direct quote, it said this: "Spells are woven and so are clothes." So maybe it's not a stretch to see Alessandro Michele's new Gucci collection as a doorway to the occult. See all the power symbols he used on the catwalk and what they mean if you adopt them as talismans, aka status bags, for yourself. That is a direct quote from the website. McQueen's collection often explored themes of death, transformation, and the macabre. He saw fashion as a theater, and he's used provocative imagery to tell emotional stories. Owens consistently uses dark architectural designs that some interpret as having occult influences, including pentagrams. He even describes his work as exploring the beauty in darkness. The key question isn't whether these symbols exist, it's how we interpret their meaning and their intent. Here's the strategy. It's repetition. These brands push shock imagery. They wait for the outrage and then they move on to the next campaign. And over time, what do? We become desensitized. And what once shocked us, now it has become just fashion. This is a key tactic in occult circles. Flaunt symbols openly, knowing that the public will either deny it or dismiss it. To me, it's deeper than that. It's desensitization. And when you engage with these brands, we buy their products, we idolize their ambassadors, we emulate their styles, we may unknowingly come into a spiritual agreement with their agendas. In the spiritual realm, participation is partnership. You don't need to perform the rituals yourselves, you just need to buy into them. Think about this for a second. If branding is all about identity, then who is behind the identity of these brands? Many brands do incorporate what is called occult imagery, but let's look at this objectively. From a design perspective, these symbols often have striking visual appeal. They're different. They tap into themes of mystery, power, and rebellion. They can create emotional connections with consumers, and they actually differentiate brands in very crowded marketplaces. From a cultural perspective, Gothic and alternative subcultures have always embraced these aesthetics for decades. For many, these symbols represent artistic expressions, not literal beliefs. They can be forms of social commentary or rebellion against conservative norms. From a religious perspective, many communities view these as highly problematic, and others see context and intent as crucial factors. But here's something that is worth considering. When occult imagery becomes mainstream fashion, what happens to its original meaning? Many practitioners of various spiritual traditions, both mainstream and alternative, they express extreme concern about their symbols being commercialized without others understanding. And this raises huge questions about cultural appropriation versus artistic inspiration versus spiritual alliances that are blindly being formed. The difference between dark sacred symbols and decorative elements, how commercialization affects the power or the meaning of symbols. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's episode, Lumiér Label, and this is a brand that has very intentional branding and quality craftsmanship. It's a blue light frame with 3 interchangeable lenses in yellow, blue, and black. And if you would like to protect your eyes, you can use the code on the record for $20 off at www.lumiérlabel.com. Back to the episode. As consumers, we have choices and responsibilities. Research before you buy. Understand what a brand actually represents. Sometimes it's a lot deeper than we know. Learn about the symbols and the imagery that we come into agreement with when we wear. Consider how our purchases align with our values, and think critically. Distinguish between artistic expression and literal messaging. Consider multiple interpretations of symbolic imagery. Okay, let's go off the record for a moment. Let me speak to those of us coming from a biblical worldview. Scripture tells us this: be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. That means we don't have to live in fear, but we also don't have to live naively. And when Paul writes this in Ephesians about wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces, he is reminding us that there is a spiritual dimension to literally everything, including the cultural messages that we consume. That doesn't mean that every fashion designer is a part of some coordinated attack against Christianity. No. But it does mean that we should be discerning and intentional about what we allow to influence us and our families. The Bible calls us to think about whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. So when imagery that is consistently celebrating darkness, rebellion against God, or harmful themes, that's something that's worth paying attention to. As believers, we are called to be good stewards of our resources and our influence. And that does include being thoughtful about which companies we support with our dollars and what messaging changing, we are amplifying through our choices. This isn't about legalism or fear, it's about wisdom. It's about discernment. It's about using the mind that God gave us to think critically and our hearts to discern spiritually. But what does this actually mean? Well, it means that we need to stay informed. It means we need to learn about the brands that we're supporting and understand the symbols and the imagery that are in our wardrobe. It means that we actually need to think for ourselves. The goal of this show is never to tell you what to think. It's simply just to encourage you to think a little bit more deeply about the visual language that is surrounding us every single day. Whether you see these symbols as art, commerce, spiritual expression, or cultural commentary, the important thing is this, that you're engaging critically with the world around you. As we know, fashion is a mirror of our culture. And sometimes what we see in the mirror may make us uncomfortable, and that discomfort can be the beginning of very important conversations. But now it's your turn to go onto the record. Now comment below or send us an email at the link here on the screen and let us know, what do you think? How do you interpret symbolic imagery in fashion? Is it deeper than we think? Thanks for watching today's episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the family. You have been on the record with Robbi. Until next time. By the way, guys, we are launching an exclusive monthly newsletter. So if you'd like to receive that, join the family, join the fun, click the link down below to sign up. There is some really exciting stuff that we have coming up, and I want you to be the first to know about it. And on top of that, we're also giving away a pair of Lumiér Label glasses, the blue light glasses that we've been talking about. And I'm really excited for you to get your hands on them. That competition is going to end at the end of September. I'll see you at the next episode.